As a quick bonus video, I thought I'd demonstrate how you can turn your custom shape into a pattern within Photoshop. So I'm going to create a new layer and go to my custom shape tool where I already created this angelfish shape in an earlier video. And so I'll take that custom shape and I want to turn that into a pattern. And traditionally the way I might make a pattern would be to, have different elements of this. I'll duplicate that holding down the Alt or Option key, maybe give it a different color. Perhaps I'll flip it on itself, for example, and transform it. So I'm going to go ahead and say flip horizontal. Now they got two of those. I might make a duplicate of those and rotate them around, Control T, and I'll shift those and sort of rotate them. And maybe I'll sort of come on here and make a little bit of a pattern out of them. And I wanted to kind of see what that would look like if it was repeating. I don't know that I love this. I might try and pull these sort of off of each other just a little bit so that they're not in each other's way, and we could kind of see what that might look like. To do that, traditionally what I would do is like make a selection of those things. I'll turn my background off so it's not part of it, and I'd go under the edit menu and I'd say define that as a pattern. Now, I might not have got this exactly as I wanted. I often didn't. And so in order to see the pattern, you would then fill a layer with it. And so I'm going to turn everything off and go under the edit menu and fill. And one of the options for fill, the default would be foreground color, but I could go down to the pattern option and fill with the custom pattern that I just made. And we could kind of take a look at how that would fill within the scene. And I've got these big gaps in between my pattern, maybe not what I wanted. Of course, Photoshop has a better way. And so what I'm going to do to make a pattern instead is use something called the pattern preview. If you go, and I'm going to get rid of this other layer, but if you go under the view menu, you can see that pattern preview, but it's not going to work great. It's saying, hey, it's probably better to use a smart object, and here's why. Once I look at this, it's actually considering the entire canvas that I had, and I've got this giant sort of gaps within that. So what would have been better, and I'm going to go ahead and turn that pattern preview back off, is instead of that, and I could go back to 100% here. Instead of that, I'm going to go ahead and take these 4 layers, select them all, and convert them into a smart object. Then I could just work with that smart object and see the pattern out of that. So I'm going to double click on the smart object, open the little PSB file that's created from that, and then we could use the pattern preview to take a look at what that would look like as a pattern. And what's cool about this is each of these is now editable. So I could go on here and sort of move these around. Maybe I want this to be sort of off screen just a bit. So, like it can go off the pattern and sort of fill in some of these gaps a little bit more. Maybe I make these a bit tighter together and these other ones are a little bit off screen. And I could see sort of what that pattern might look like. It's still editable, so I could add other elements of this. I could, for example, scale this one down a little bit and sort of change the scale of it. Maybe I choose this other fish and do the same thing. I'll kind of scale that one down, and we could sort of position these in different places. I could rotate them to see what if it's sort of rotated, and I can have that sort of in and out of the scene a little bit better. So I could switch around to these different fish, see sort of different like looks and sort of patterns to them, and figure out kind of how I'd like this to work. So if I get something that I like, and I could continue to duplicate these as well. So what I could do is take that layer and duplicate it again and have another smaller fish altogether that's kind of in the middle. Maybe there's, if I wanted that to be a different color, I could certainly go into my color palette and like choose some other color for this other fish. I don't know that I love that bright orange. I was having this sort of pastel look, so maybe I'll kind of keep it with a more of a pastel orange. And so we can kind of see what that might look like as part of this. Once I've got something I like, I go to my patterns panel that's here. If you can't find that, that would be under the window. You'd find patterns. And then I could define, any of the patterns I defined are there. And one easy way to define a pattern is just to click the plus button. And we've got this new pattern that was from our smart object. I'm done with the smart object. And so what I could do is just close it. Doesn't even matter if I save it. I'll just go back to this scene because I've defined my pattern right here. And to apply it, I'll create a new layer and simply click one time to apply that pattern in. Now the pattern's still a little bit bigger than I really wanted, and so that works great, but the pattern's bigger. When you apply this by clicking from the pattern library, it uses what's called a pattern fill. And what I could do is just double click on the pattern fill option here to open the parameters for that. And I can scale this down, for example, to only 50% of the size, and maybe give this a different angle so that it was on a different trajectory, right? So I could change the angle, I could change the scale, and recreate my pattern in a new way here, which is really powerful. So a great feature in Photoshop to work with that pattern preview and pattern fill to create some cool things. It's starting to look like wallpaper or wrapping paper or something like that. And of course, this works with regular bitmap imagery, raster imagery, not just vector shapes. You can do this with any kind of graphic and explore pattern fill inside of Photoshop.